gamers, today we're going to make a little game where you're the player walking around this grid collecting coins or money, and the zombie, the one in green, is chasing you. We're going to program this in C. I'm going to define a grid size, so if I change my mind and I want a smaller or bigger grid, then I'll just change this one variable grid size. I'm going to typedef, make an alias for this structure that'll keep track of the X and the Y position of my player and later the zombie. Since our grid's 20 by 20, let's put the player right in the middle of that at a 10 by 10 position on the map. And the next thing I'm going to do is make a function to print our grid. Since we've got 20 rows and 20 columns, we're going to need two for loops, so nested for loops. One of them that's going through all the Y positions, all the different columns, and the other that's going for all the different rows. And for right now, I'm just going to either be printing that we've got an empty spot in the grid, or we've got our player. So we'll need an if statement to check to see if the player's position, which starts out at 10, is equal to the X that we're looking at in this for loop, and same with the Y. If it is, then I'm going to print P for player. And then we'll put an else, we'll just print like a period and a space. And every time you're done printing the contents of a row, we'll go to the next line. So let's see if this works. If I hit run, I haven't actually called the function yet, so we're just going to print hello world. So I need to actually call this function. I'm going to make another function called game loop, and I'll let the user move the player around. So they could type X to exit. Otherwise, we'll use the keys WASD that gamers are used to using on their keyboard to move. While the user hasn't said they want to exit, we'll go ahead and print the grid. And I'll give the user the option to do WASD. So they want to go to the left, it's the A. If they want to go up, it's a W. Down is S, and right is D. So we'll read in this character. The reason I put a space in front of that %C for my scanf is after you hit the WASD or X, you're going to hit the enter key, and that enter key is a character that we don't want to be stored in the command variable. So that'll skip the enter character and then store whatever else they typed in into command. So I'll do a switch case. We could also do an if, else if, else if, else, but I'll do a switch case here, and the cases are either W, A, S, or D. If they did W, that means we want to move the Y position up one, but if they're already at the top of the grid, then we don't want to move them beyond the grid. So that's why I'm checking to see if the player's already, if they're greater than 0, we can subtract 1. Otherwise, we won't do anything when they hit W. And same thing, if they do S, they're going down. This time we'll check, is it the Y position smaller than the grid size -1? If it is, it's safe to add 1. Let's just clone this, and we can put in the other two cases, and that'll be if you're changing your X position. So you don't want to go off the left side of the board, you don't want to go off the right side of the board, so we'll need to put in some checks for, is our X going to be, if it's greater than 0, then it's safe to move left, and if it's less than the grid size -1, then it's safe to move right. And now we need to just call our function game loop, which is going to draw the board and then let the user choose. Ooh, I must have forgotten something. I think I am missing some curly braces when I was originally setting up the while loop. I did not put my ending curly brace in there. So let's see if this fixes it. Yeah, one of them's the end of the switch, one's the end of the while loop. Run again. All right, we've got our grid, and there's the player at position 2020. And if we move W, we're going to go up, keep going up, move to the left, move down, move to the right. So it looks good. There's definitely some room for improvement, though. The first thing I want to do is add a function that will simulate clearing the screen. It will make it look cleaner so that you will only see one of those grids at a time. And we're going to achieve this by printing this, what looks like a very weird combination of characters. \033 is an escape sequence, and then the square bracket 2J tells the terminal to clear the screen. It's an ANSI code for clear screen. Then we've got another escape sequence and a square bracket H, which means move the cursor to the home position or the top left corner of the terminal. Okay, so we'll call clear screen every time through our game loop. And look how much cleaner it looks now. We can only see one grid at a time because it's clearing the screen in between. This will work for Linux or Unix. And it works well on Online GDB, which is what I'm using right now. All right, that looks good. All right, the next thing I want to do to improve this game would be to add something for the player to collect. I'll call it money or gold coins. And so I'll say I've got a grid size by grid size, a two-dimensional array of integers that will keep track of 0, there's no coin there, there's no gold there, or 1, there is gold there. And my init gold function will decide using random numbers where we're going to put the gold. If I'm using random numbers, I need a few more pound include statements. I need to pull in standard lib for srand and rand. And if I'm seeding the random number generator with time, I'll pull in time.h. So I'm going to borrow these for loops where I was going through all the rows and all the columns. And this time I will be updating my gold two-dimensional array. But I don't want to put gold right on top of the player. So if the player's at 2020, then I don't want the gold right there. And as the player's moving around, let's check the player's position before we put gold in that position. So if the player is in a spot, then we'll just say, you're not going to put gold there. So if I'm starting at 2020, there will be no gold in position 2020. Otherwise, I want to use a random number generator to figure out whether or not there should be gold in that position. So I'm going to do a little statement here where I'll say this spot in the two-dimensional array, it might be 0 and it might be 1. And I'll say the result of this random number generation, modulus 10, if that's a 0, which there's a 1 in 10 chance of it being a 0, then we'll go ahead and put gold there. So that statement will be true 1/10 of the time and false, meaning there's no gold, 9/10 of the time. So I need to print something different if we are on a space in the screen where there's gold. If there is, I'll just print like a $sign, say money, go ahead and collect the money. Missing another curly brace. I'm not good at those curly braces today. Make sure we've got ending curly braces for our for loops. And then in main, let's seed the random number generator using time. And we'll call our init gold function before we start the game loop. And if we run it, we see all these $signs spread out through the board. If you don't want quite as much gold, you can change your modulus 10 to modulus something larger. Or if you want even more gold, modulus something smaller than 10. All right, nice. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is print how much gold you've collected. And so I'll put a print statement printing, and I'll need to make a variable called gold collected and start that out at 0 at the top of the program. That'll be a global variable. And you can tell that you're collecting gold if the player moves and then they're on top of a spot where the gold is set to 1. So it doesn't matter whether they're doing W, A, S, or D. We can do it outside of that switch statement, but inside the while loop, we'll check if the gold two-dimensional array at where the player is sitting has a 1 in it, then that means the player is directly on top of the gold. So we can go ahead for debugging. I'll just print gold collected. We don't really need to print that, but for now, we'll go ahead and print that. And then set collected to 1 bigger than it was before. And if the gold's collected, it should be set to 0. I'm printing gold collected way too many times. I need to print that only once per every time we're printing the grid. So let me make sure to move that outside of both of those 4 loops. Much better. Okay, we start with 0 gold, and I'll move around, and as my player goes on top of the gold collected number is going up by 1. I'm going to add some color to our player and our gold just to make them stand out a little bit more. So for the player, I'm going to use this set of character codes. That means a kind of a dark blue. And then another set will set us back to normal color, which is just white on this black background. And you can see what that does. Yeah, so it's a pretty dark color blue. Let's go ahead and maybe add a different color for our gold. Thinking a yellow. All right, that looks good. I also want to add some zombies, or at least we'll start with 1 zombie to this game. So the zombie will have a position. We could use a random number generator for the position, but for now I'm just going to start the zombie at 0, 0. And then I'm going to make a function that will help the zombie figure out how to move. And it wants to move toward the player. So if the player X is greater than the zombie X, then we'll add 1 to the zombie X. Similar thing if the player X is less than, then we'll subtract 1 from the zombie. Same kind of thing for the Y. Yeah, actually, that'll be Y. All right, so I'll need to call this function to move the zombie. Let's call it in our game loop. So we've got the game loop here. Maybe before we print the grid would be a good time. So move zombie. Let's see how it works. Oh, I need to change the print function so we actually print the zombie. So if the zombie X is equal to the X that we're looking at, and the zombie Y is equal to the Y, then we're going to be printing the zombie character. I'll do like a Z for zombie. And we could make the zombie a different color. How about, I think this is green. So I'll put blue, green, and then this is yellow. Let's see. All right, the zombie starting out in, I thought I did 0, 0, but that, Oh, I guess it might have moved once already. It's moving closer to the player. And then I'm going to move and see if the zombie starts chasing me. Cool. Looks like it's working. And now at some point, if we are on the same spot, it should be game over. I just went over top of the zombie and it's following me, so now we're on the same spot. So we just need a game over. That would be in the game loop. So I'll say after we move the zombie would be a good time to check if the player X is equal to the zombie X, and the same thing for the Y position. Then we'll say game over and break out of this while loop. Okay, so I think we could make this game a little more challenging if the zombie had like 2 moves for every 1 move of the player, because right now it's pretty easy to avoid the zombie, but there, I landed on top of it. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. Happy programming!